Hello, if you came here to design or print a custom Pokeball, or you are here from Project Kurt, you are in the right place. But if you're a fan of Pokemon or 3D printing in general, this video probably still relates to you. In short, it's about how these custom Pokeballs get made and how you can get one for yourself. If you already know exactly why you're here, you can pop on down to the timestamps and or links in the description. But if you don't, in this video I'll be talking about why the heck I'm doing all this, what the heck it is I'm actually doing, how you can build your own custom Pokeball, and once you've designed one, how to print it and build the thing. Then, finally, I will be talking about where this project will be going in the future, and what you can expect from me going forward. So, why the heck am I doing this project, and how did it all get started? Well, grab some popcorn, because it's going to be a long one. It all started long ago. Now, I know everyone says this, but I genuinely was a huge fan of Pokemon when I was a child. Like, persuade your parents to take road trips for the express purpose of going to a Pokemon convention. Huge fan. And one small part of my fanaticism manifested itself in me buying a dozen or so small foam Pokeball toys. I'm not sure if it was how iconic they were or how collectible, or if it was each one's sleek, minimalist design, but something motivated me to spend what little pocket money I had on those cheap little foam toys. And today, unlike my waning interest in the games themselves, whatever it was that drew me to those balls back then has really stuck with me over the years. Even after moving to college, I tracked down what few balls I had never bought in the first place and used my craftsmanship skills to create a cool little display for them. And while that satisfied my urge for a while, recently I've been feeling that itch again, but in trying to scratch it, I've run into a few problems. For one, even though I live in Japan, the birthplace of Pokemon, I am a literal card-carrying resident of a remote island. So they don't exactly have a lot of shops here that deal extensively in Pokemon merch. And for another, even when I do get a chance to head to the mainland, the stuff they're selling just generally ain't doing it for me anymore. Cause here's the thing, I really love lore-accurate balls. I love when they open up, just like they do in the games, and I love when they have perfectly round, sleek, uninterrupted designs, just like they do in the games. The thing is, I have never, not once, not in any of my research, found a Pokeball that both opens up and doesn't have an external hinge, ruining the design. And the reason why is pretty simple. Geometry. See, unlike in the games, in real life, you need something physical to attach the two halves together. And the simplest, and therefore cheapest, way to do this is with something called a pin hinge. This is the kind of hinge you find in most doors, and it lets two objects rotate relative to each other around a point. The problem is, with this kind of hinge, it always needs to be on the exterior of whatever it is that it's attached to. That's why you only see doors with hinges on the outside, and why, in my research, I only found balls with hinges on the outside, destroying the integrity of the design. And that, my friends, is the crux of my problem. For whatever reason, the Poke engineers have yet to release a ball that both opens and has no external hinge. Accordingly, I have taken it upon myself to make it so. So, let's talk about what it is exactly I've set out to do here. As I said, I wanted to create a Pokeball design that both could open up and had no visible external hinge. However, if I was going to be doing this, I wanted to do it right. I didn't want to just make one Pokeball like this and call it good. No, I wanted to make something that I could very easily redesign and remodel to make every variety of Pokeball in existence, should I so choose. And spoiler alert, I am so choosing. So, here was my mission. I wanted to make a 3D printable Pokeball model that 1. Opens automatically when you press the front button. 2. Has no externally visible hinge. 3. Can be built without the need of any specialty parts, springs, magnets, anything that you can't just find around the house. And 4. Comes with a 3D model that is relatively easy to modify. Now, was I successful in doing this? Well, instead of just telling you, why don't I show you? This is my final product. 10 centimeters in diameter, simple yet refined design, completely unblemished by any unsightly external hinges. And when you press the button... So, anyway, let's talk about how this thing actually works. The button is actually pretty simple. It's just held in place by a rubber band that causes it to spring back in place when you press it. It's attached to this notch, which slots in down here, and when you press the button, it comes out of the slot, which allows it to spring open. The hinge, however, is a bit more complicated. Remember how I said a simple pin hinge would be geometrically impossible to use in this situation? Well, I wasn't lying, which meant that I needed to figure out a more complicated mechanism that was still simple enough to be 3D printed, built, and work reliably. And this is what I settled on. This is what is known as a pin slot joint. It is so called because it is made up of a slot for the pieces to move back and forth in, as well as a pin for the pieces to rotate around. What this allows the top and bottom to do is slide out of the way of each other first, and then rotate into position. However, even if we've done this, we still haven't implemented a way for it to open automatically on its own. But if we glue in little tabs here that we can attach a rubber band to, then voila! It can spring open all on its lonesome. But even if we do that, while it can't rotate open while it's latched shut, it can still slide apart while it's latched shut, like this. So, I needed to completely redesign the thing, add little tabs right here, so that when you close it, it hooks into place, working as designed. So, this design does, objectively, 1, open automatically when you press the front button, 2, have no external hinge, and 3, is constructible using only glue and rubber bands, which I feel most households have. However, I also said I wanted it to be based off of an easily editable 3D model, and I figured the best way to show you if that's true or not is to show you how to edit it. Which brings us to here, Fusion 360. After I went on vacation for a couple weeks. But anyway, this is the program that I made these models in, so you'll need to download it if you want to edit it and make your own. Don't worry though, it does have free versions for hobbyists and I believe students? A link in the description below. Now, a couple things before we begin. One, this is not going to be a comprehensive Fusion 360 tutorial. I am no expert myself, and this video is already going to be long enough as it is. If you would like a tutorial where I go more in-depth in how to make these, let me know down in the comments below and I'll see what I can do. Secondly, to cover my legal bases, if you are going to be using these models, my designs, I need to talk about the copyright associated with them. The official jargon is that these files are being shared under the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 4.0 International License. That sounds like a lot, and I will include a link to the full definition in the description below for your reference, but basically what it means is that I am partially relinquishing my copyright on these files so that I don't have to give express permission to every single person that wants to use them. Now, if you already know exactly what that means, feel free to skip past this part, but if you don't, I will gladly tell you how I understand it, at least as someone with no legal expertise. In practical terms, this license means that you can share these models wherever you want. Take pics and upload them to Instagram, upload the files themselves to printables, whatever. You may also, of course, adapt the models however you want and upload those models wherever you want. Make your own custom design, improve on the hinge mechanism I've made. The world's your litter box. Doesn't matter what changes you make, that will not be infringing on my copyright. However, there are a few conditions that you have to follow to be granted these permissions. 1. Attribution. You have to say where you got the model from, and that means indicating that I was the one who made the original, linking back to where you originally downloaded the model from, and mentioning what changes, if any, you made. Something like this would be just fine. Also, if you upload it to Printables, MakerWorld, or Thingiverse, where I've uploaded my original model, you should absolutely use the tools available on that website to mark it as a remix of my original model. But you are not allowed to indicate in any way that I endorse the changes you made to my model. I know some of y'all are going to make some wild stuff out there, and I don't want anyone thinking that I personally was the one to greenlight any of it. But anyway, number 2. The non-commercial part. No making money off of this, and no making money off of things that you made from this. No selling the model, no selling 3D prints of what you've made, nothing like that. I'm not putting any of this behind a paywall, so you may not either. And finally, number 3, share alike. If you make anything based off of these models and then post them, you need to share them under the same license as these models, and you need to provide the same link that I have to the license definition. If you could share creations based off of my model under different licenses, then that would kind of defeat the purpose of this whole thing. Anything that involves these models is stuck with this license, nothing stricter, nothing looser. So, why did I choose to do this, and why have I chosen to explain it in this much excruciating detail? Well, one of the main goals of this channel is to provide people with the inspiration and the tools to be creative and learn new skills. Because of this, I think it would be just a little thematically strange to give everyone free access to my models and my resources in order for them to make their own designs, and then also let them lock those designs behind paywalls or not link back to the resources that they had used to make those designs. So, with all of that legalese out of the way, let's finally talk about how you can make your own design. Now, you actually have 2 choices for what you want to base your design on, because 26 of the 28 Pokeballs have the exact same structure. You know, a middle band that attaches to the top and the button when you open it up. However, 2 of them, namely the Beast Ball and the Cherish Ball, open up in the dead center, which meant that once I realized that, I had to go through and completely redesign the original hinge mechanism so that it opened up in the exact middle instead of slightly off to the side. But it's okay, because I'm not upset. Either way, if you want that classic Pokeball design, you can open up the Classic Ball F3D file. But if you want something more along the lines of a Beast Ball or a Cherish Ball where it opens up in the dead center, you can choose the Symmetrical Ball F3D file, and that'll bring it up in Fusion 360. Now I'm going to be showing you how I made this pumpkin ball here, so I will be choosing the Classic Ball. Now that we've got it opened up, we can start to make our adjustments. Now, I've tried to give you as much leeway as possible to be as creative as you can be. However, there are a few rules that you need to follow if you want to create a final product that is actually functional. Number 1, you have to leave at least some plastic connecting the front and the back on the top and the bottom. You can drill entire holes through the thing if you want, but if you cut all the way through it like this, then it'll fall apart when you try to print it out and build it. Number 2, don't mess with the hinges or the back of the button. This area and this area make up the actual functional parts of the ball, so editing them will more often than not just break it. Number 3, be careful editing the back of the middle right here. If you thicken this for whatever reason, it can actually prevent the ball from opening properly. If you want to mess with it and then check to see if your edits interfere, you can always click the eyeball button on this analysis right here and then physically open it up to check, but I just wouldn't mess with it at all. So, what did I do? Well, while there are tons of ways to change the design itself, I opted to go for a T-spline and make a pumpkin shape that I could overlay directly onto the ball itself. T-splines in Fusion are basically its version of a free sculpt tool, so if you want to change the actual shape of the ball, that's one way to go. I just used the sphere command and made one 10 centimeters wide here, and used the tools to pinch and pull it around into something that I liked. Then, once everything was the way I wanted, I used the revolve tool and this sketch here to hollow it out, and then the split body tool in conjunction with this sketch here to cut the middle out. After that, I was free to combine these little pieces back onto the pumpkin And then I use the combine tool to cut out the Pokeball shape from the pumpkin and get rid of all these extraneous pieces here. Finally, I use the combine tool, again, to actually combine the pumpkin parts with the top and bottom to make my completed design. So, after I exported those as meshes, I then had to slice it up. But before we talk about that, I need to talk about how to adapt a pre-existing design onto this one. So, if you're not interested in that, you can use the timestamps below to skip to the printing a ball section. So, let's say that you've already made a cool design in the past, or you found a design someone else has made that either doesn't open up, or it does and it uses one of, and you want to adapt it to my design so it opens up without the external hinge. I will be showing you how to do this by adapting this Gengar Ball design, originally by WizPrint 3D. I've included the link to the OG model in the description. Now, it's important to note that this design was published under a standard copyright license, so in order to use it for this purpose, I needed to get express permission directly from the creator. So make sure whatever design you're using and whatever you want to use it for is legal under the copyright that it's published under. And speaking of copyright, the licenses that I have published these models under is the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 4.0 International License, and that basically just allows you to share them and post them in the way that I am allowing you through this video. If you don't know specifically what that means, I'll be telling you shortly, but if you do know what it means, or you already heard me talk about it in the last section, feel free to skip ahead. This is literally just the same clip as that one, but copy and paste it here. In practical terms, this license means that you can share these models wherever you want. Take pics and upload them to Instagram, upload the files themselves to printables, whatever. You may also, of course, adapt the models however you want and upload those models wherever you want. Make your own custom design, improve on the hinge mechanism I've made. The world's your litter box. Doesn't matter what changes you make, that will not be infringing on my copyright. However, there are a few conditions that you have to follow to be granted these permissions. 1. Attribution. You have to say where you got the model from, and that means indicating that I was the one who made the original, linking back to where you originally downloaded the model from, and mentioning what changes, if any, you made. Something like this would be just fine. Also, if you upload it to Printables, MakerWorld, or Thingiverse, where I've uploaded my original model, you should absolutely use the tools available on that website to mark it as a remix of my original model. But you are not allowed to indicate in any way that I endorse the changes you made to my model. I know some of y'all are going to make some wild stuff out there, and I don't want anyone thinking that I personally was the one to greenlight any of it. But anyway, number 2. The non-commercial part. No making money off of this, and no making money off of things that you made from this. No selling the model, no selling 3D prints of what you've made, nothing like that. I'm not putting any of this behind a paywall, so you may not either. And finally, number 3, share alike. If you make anything based off of these models and then post them, you need to share them under the same license as these models. And you need to provide the same link that I have to the license definition. If you could share creations based off of my model under different licenses, then that would kind of defeat the purpose of this whole thing. Anything that involves these models is stuck with this license, nothing stricter, nothing looser. So, why did I choose to do this, and why have I chosen to explain it in this much excruciating detail? Well, one of the main goals of this channel is to provide people with the inspiration and the tools to be creative and learn new skills. Because of this, I think it would be just a little thematically strange to give everyone free access to my models and my resources in order for them to make their own designs, and then also let them lock those designs behind paywalls or not link back to the resources that they had used to make those designs. So, onto the actual adapting of the model. You have two .f3d files that, if you click on them, will open them in Fusion 360. So, of course, if you have not already, please download Fusion 360. Link in the description. I believe there are free versions for hobbyists and students. Now, there are two F3D files to choose from. One, the classic Pokeball base. This is the one you think of when you think of Pokeball. And two, a symmetrical base, which may look a little bit silly, but if you want to make something like the Beast Ball or the Cherish Ball, those actually open up in the dead center and not a little bit off center like the Pokeball does. So if you really want to do that, you have the option. After you've picked whichever one you want, I'm going to do the classic one. You're going to insert a mesh and probably select it from your computer. And once it loads here, we're going to realize that it's not exactly the right size. It's a little smaller, and like the button is also a different size. So we're going to need to solve that by scaling it up and down. Now, we could just eyeball it and use the scale tool to change it to approximately the right size, but I don't want to do that. No, we're going to do something a bit more exact. We're going to get rid of all of the existing ball stuff, so we're just working with whatever mesh pieces we have imported. Now, this is black, and it's not black because the color of it isn't necessarily black. It's because it's completely covered by all of these thousands upon millions of triangles, which will make our computer explode if it wants to handle it. Now, if yours can handle it, that's great. But we're going to want to decrease the amount of triangles so that our computer doesn't, like, cry when we try to mess around with it. So we're going to go way up to Mesh up here, and then we're going to hit Reduce, and then select this. And so we kind of want to just bring it down a bit. And we'll hit OK. So now, as you can see, there's a lot fewer triangles. We brought it down from 25 to 5, and now there's a fifth of the amount of triangles, and our computer should be a bit happier about moving that around. So here's how we're going to figure out exactly how to scale this one up so it fits perfectly over this one. Now, we know that both of these are built off of spheres, off of balls, and we know the diameter of this one. It's 10 centimeters. I know because I made it myself. But we don't know the diameter of this one. And because it's got a big old chunk missing, we're going to have to recreate the original sphere it was built around, measure that, and then we can figure out exactly how much we need to scale it up so it fits perfectly over this. So right now it's a mesh, and Fusion 360 can't really edit meshes, not in the way that we want to anyway. So if we go to the mesh tab up here, and we hit modify, and then turn it into a body by hitting convert mesh, selecting our body, and then hitting OK, bada bing, bada boom, we've turned it into something now that we can actually edit. Okay, I did indeed need to reduce the amount of triangles, but if we're in solid mode and we click Create Sketch, and we can take advantage of the fact that because it is a 3D printable file, it has a flat bottom, we can click on one here. So now essentially what we're doing is we're drawing things in the exact same plane as the bottom of our model here. And first things first, we're going to hit P. P for project, and what that's going to do is it's going to take existing things from the environment and put them onto our sketch. We're going to pick 3 points from the outside circle. 1, 2, and 3. Now you're going to want them to be relatively spaced out. And we'll hit OK. And then up here we can select circle, 3-point circle. And then we're going to click all 3 points that we just made. And what that's going to do is it's going to draw an exact circle instead of this triangle blocky mess, circumscribing the outside of the ball here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to hit L for line, and we're going to draw one from the center here, it should snap in, to anywhere on the outside of the line. And then you're going to draw another line from the center, exactly opposite, so that it divides the circle in half, like this. And then we're going to hit Finish Sketch. Now, if you don't see the sketch, like I don't, you can go on the left and you can click this Sketches button right here. There's a little eye that'll show it to you. And now we're going to go up and we're going to hit Construct and Plane at Angle. And we're going to click that long line that we just did. And then we're going to hit 90 degrees. Boom. And then hit OK. So what we've just done is we've created a plane that will divide this sphere exactly in half. And then we're going to go back and we're going to do the same thing. Create the sketch. We're going to select this plane now instead. And then we're going to hit our friend P for project again. And we're going to select the circle and the lines we made. And 1 point on the top. And hit OK. And we'll go back to create, circle, 3-point circle, and we're going to select the left the right, and that one dot we picked up there. And then OK. Now look at this. Isn't that a great circle? Now that we got the great circle, we can hit Finish Sketch, and then inspect, and then measure this. So we know that the radius is 79.959 millimeters. And we'll note that down. I would not be surprised if the original thing was 80 millimeters, and we have a little bit of an error from like the fact that we changed it from a perfect sphere into this triangle-y bumpy sphere. But we'll continue with that. So we'll close that. And now we're going to hit Modify, Scale, and select this body. So we'll take the length of the diameter of the Pokeball, which is 100 millimeters, and we'll divide it by the length of the diameter of the great circle of the Gengar ball, which was 79.959, and we'll hit OK. Now if you select Move and click the Gengar ball, we can move it over here. Now as we can see, it's looking like a pretty darn good fit. Now what we can do is we can click Set Pivot and change it to the origin right there so that the X, Y, and Z are indeed up, down, left, and right, and forward and back, so we're not doing anything funky here. Now what I'm doing right here is nudging the model left, right, front, back, up, and down by entering in positive and negative super tiny values in the X, Y, and Z boxes. And once I'm satisfied that the Gengar ball is lined up with the Pokeball well enough, I'll move on to the next step. And I'm pretty darn satisfied with that. It's peeking out a little bit just due to little errors, but the important part is all of the spines up top are peeking out, and that's what we want. So we can hit OK there. So now what we want to do is use the Pokeball base as a tool to cut away the stuff we don't want from the Gengar ball. Like as you can see here, there's stuff peeking out. There are things in the joints that we don't want, so we can't just combine it directly. So how we're going to do that is we're going to hit the Combine, and the target body is going to be the Gengar ball. The tool body is going to be the top here, and the operation is going to be Cut. And we need to click Keep Tools so we don't lose the Pokeball base when we're done. And then when we hit OK, we see it creates a whole bunch of bodies. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn off the main body here, click that, and we're just going to go through and delete all of the junk that is not what we want. So we clearly want all these little spines on the outside, but we don't want this. So in trying to get rid of everything we want, we got to go up to Modify, Remove, and then we're just going to click every single piece of junk that we don't need. Now, depending on how you did it, you might have little pieces down here that you need to worry about. Don't worry, if you don't get them, they're just going to get stuck to the final product anyway. So it's not too huge of a deal. Make sure you get stuff on the inside like this. You don't want anything getting into the actual hinges and slots and stuff. That will get in the way of us assembling it later. So this crud as well, we can delete all of this. In an ideal world, we would have gotten everything exactly, and we wouldn't have any of this junk, but we don't. So there is. You can hit OK. Now, if you want to make sure you got everything, you can scroll through the buys on the left here, and you can see how they're highlighted when I scroll over them. Like, I don't know where this guy is. And we can see that this guy is the tiny little thing here. So we can just right-click him and click Remove. And now that we made sure that everything is where we want it to be, we can click on the eyeball here to bring the main body back. We can go back to our friend the Combine tool, click on the top, use all of these bodies here as our tool bodies, and then we can select Join and uncheck Keep Tools because we don't need that. And then we hit OK, and then here we go. And now, if we click the top visibility button, we can see that we have created a Gengar ball based off of Wizprint's design, but put onto my design. You want to make sure that there's no junk in here, and also that there's no junk up in here. You should have deleted all of that already. Now we can right-click the bodies that we modified. In this case, we only did the top, so we only need to export that one. So we can right-click, save as mesh, hit OK, and then we can go down here and find the place where we want to save it as. I can just save it as top, and then there we go. Hit save. And then if we go searching for it, we can see here it is in all of its glory. It's all done. And as far as the other parts go, obviously if you edited them, you'll need to export them yourself. But if you didn't edit them, you can download them from wherever you downloaded the original F3D file. Or if you really want to, I guess you can export all of them from Fusion 360, though I don't know why you would want to. I've already exported them for you. All right, folks, we're almost there. We have almost got the thing in our hands. All we need to do is print it out and put it together. Now, if you are printing one of my designs on a Bamboo Lab printer, you are in luck. All you need to do is download the 3MF file, boot it up in Bamboo Studio, and just print all the files as is, minus the stands, of course, if you don't want them. However, if you're printing one of your own designs or you do not have a Bamboo Lab printer, it's still not that bad. There's only a few things you need to keep in mind while printing these. Namely, you'll need to put supports on the top and bottom. No getting around that. If I were you, I would print all 4 hinge parts with 100% infill. They will by far be undergoing the most stress. This one's just a suggestion, but obviously, while you don't need to print the stands out, if you print one of those trophy stands out, I would recommend putting filament swaps in there so that you can kind of change up the color scheme and give it a little pizzazz. But other than that, once you've printed them all out, we can start building. Now, you may have a slightly different piece list depending on whether you made up all based off of the symmetrical model or not, or whether or not you designed it with extra pieces to assemble, etc., etc. But in general, you should have these pieces, so make sure you call roll. Top,
Here.
bottom,
Here.
middle,
Here.
left hinge,
Here.
right hinge,
Right.
small hinge,
Here.
middle hinge,
Here.
ring,
Here.
button collar,
Here.
button, button, button.
Oh my god.
Ooh, you better be glad you're so cute. Get in line. Anyway, as for the non-printed parts, rubber bands,
Here.
glue.
Here.
Before we begin, we need to do some last-minute prep. Remove all supports, of course, but also take a look at the button. Make sure the groove there doesn't have any excess plastic hanging out, blocking it, as well as any burrs that might be elsewhere on the model. Finally, take a look at the top along with the ring. Sometimes, depending on how your support is, the plastic might stick out a bit here and prevent the ring from setting in the grooves properly. If that's the case, sand that crud down. And with all that out of the way, we can finally begin construction. Now, of course, after you've done anything that you personally need to for any custom design that you're making, grab the top and the middle here, glue up this tab, and then insert it firmly into the top like this. Then, grab the button collar, and without gluing it, put the button in here. Now, trap that sucker in there by wrapping a rubber band around these little wings on the back side of the button collar. Depending on how big your band is, you might need to double or even triple it up, and in my experience, the thin ones like this work the best. You'll know you've done it right if it springs back after you press the button like this. Now that that's in there, we'll glue that whole thing into the ring. I recommend just putting dabs on the button colors tabs right here, and then putting it in. This will help prevent the glue from getting where it doesn't belong and gluing something that it doesn't need to glue. Next, we'll be putting this apparatus in its place on the top and middle part we constructed earlier. The tolerances are a little tight, so I recommend making sure you can snap it into place first, and then glue it so the glue doesn't dry while you're trying to wrestle it into place. If you're having difficulty getting these two pieces together, you might want to stand down the top a little bit more, like I suggested from the part. Now, after all this, I wouldn't blame you if you want to set everything aside and let the glue dry a bit before proceeding. Once you've done all that, take the small hinge and slide it into the bottom like this. This is probably the trickiest part of the build, but insert one arm of the small hinge into the hole into the middle like this, and then push the other arm in, getting it to snap into place, hopefully without snapping in two. Oh, that was easy. Now, one by one, glue the other hinges in by applying glue liberally in these areas and inserting them in their respective divots. Wait, hold up. This is the old version. Don't need that. Okay, it should look like this, actually. Put glue here. Once you've glued those in, make sure you press them all the way down so they work properly. Now, I know you're probably champing at the bit to finish it off, but don't get too hasty. Give it some time to let the glue dry, and then come back to do the finishing touches later. If you jump the gun and proceed too quickly, well, this can happen. We don't want that. Okay, hope you had a fun break. I know I did. When that's all set and done, take another rubber band and wrap it around the left and right hinge here while passing it in front of the middle hinge here. Now, when you push the two halves closed, the middle hinge should catch the rubber band like this and stretch it. And speaking of pushing it closed, if you want to close it without breaking it, make sure you push the two halves together first and then swing them closed. If you do it like this, you'll snap the hinges off. But if you've done everything correctly, the button should click into place, and then if you press it, ta-da! Be careful though, depending on the strength of the rubber band you used, it can open with quite a kick. Make sure you don't lose hold of it when it does. Okay, so we have printed and assembled our ball, and we got our spoils in hand. This is where it ends, right? Well, for you, maybe, but I'm just getting started. I've got great plans for these guys. So, let me introduce, without any further ado, Project Kurt. You know, the guy from Johto region that makes Pokeballs out of... Anyway, Project Kurt's main goal is to inspire people's creativity using 3D printing and Pokeballs. It has two prongs, one supported by me and one supported by y'all. Like I said back when I was yapping about legal licensing, one of the main goals of this channel is not only to support my own creativity, but to support yours, the viewers. With this video, I've hopefully provided a relatively easy way for you to take your first steps into 3D modeling, but I don't want it to stop there. I also want to help you all display your creations to the world, and in doing so, hopefully inspire other people to take up the craft. I want to create the world's largest database of custom Pokeball designs, and I need your help to do so. Here's the plan. In the description down below, I have provided links to collections hosted on my Thingiverse, Printables, and Maker World account that currently only have the Pumpkin Ball and the Gengar Ball included. However, if you make your own custom design, upload it to one or more of the sites I just mentioned, contact me through any of the ways that you can contact me in the description, and it's not wildly inappropriate, I will add it to those collections. And if you're someone who is looking for inspiration for your own creation, or you just want something cool to print, by necessity, everything posted there will be under the same creative license as the one that I posted, so feel free to browse, print, modify, and upload away. Now, don't think I'm gonna let you kids go off and have all the fun. Oh no! While all y'all are off making your own fancy creations, I will be going back to the basics and printing a replica of every single one of the 28 Pokeballs that have made an appearance in the main series of Pokemon video games. And with each ball that I design, I will be making a little informational video that goes over its history in the series and its in-game effects. Should be fun! And before I get started, if you want to give me some motivation, feel free to check out the intro vid in the description below, and comment on which ball you want to see me make first. I hope you're looking forward to what's coming as much as I am, but until then, thanks for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe, you're not going to want to miss what I have in store. Bye!